there's actually one more thing that I think it absolutely needs to make the SDGs a reality by 2030. And that, for me, is innovation, which is exactly what our third I will be. It needs innovation to continuously push us, our projects and developments forwards. And our moderator for the next session is someone who not only knows a thing or two about innovation, but actually she's absolutely rocking it in all of the 4 I's that we've been talking about today. Please welcome Jude Ower, the founder and CEO of PlayMob, the first platform connecting game mechanics to a social good. Very interested to hear more about that. And we're not the only ones who think she's awesome. Jude was voted one to watch in 2015 at the Talent Unleashed Awards, which was judged by none other than Sir Richard Branson, and was also voted one of the top 100 women in tech in Europe, and has many, many more accolades. But for me, one more thing that I want to point out is that she's also one of the initiators and organizers of the SDG Female Accelerator. So she's not only driving innovation and female empowerment and inclusion and impact forward herself, she's also helping empower women everywhere to do the same and create innovation. So I'm very much looking forward to hear what she will have to share with us and what our panelists will have to say. So with that, Jude, over to you.
Thank you so much, Sophie, and thank you for the kind words. Great to be here. And if I can just welcome onto the virtual stage my panelists, Joanna, Max, Ivo, and Gabrielle. Just make sure we're all here. But just while everyone's switching the cameras on, I just thought I'd start with a quick round of introductions. So I'll Sophie, I don't think I need to introduce myself because you did a fantastic job. But essentially, I'm Jude Ower. I'm the founder and CEO of a gaming platform called PlayMob, and we're a market insights platform that essentially gathers people's opinions while they play mobile games, and then provide that to organisations to make better decisions for people on the planet. So we work with the likes of United Nations and big organisations to ensure that the voice of the people around the world from all corners of the planet is are being heard. And I also support the UK Department of International Trade's Global Entrepreneur Programme, which supports international founders coming to the UK. And so from that, we were part of the Female Founders Initiative, which has been fantastic. Big supporter of female founders. We need more of them. So I'm making sure we've got all of our panelists here. If you could switch your cameras on, and I'll introduce you to the stage. And it'd be great if you can then just give a couple of minutes of introductions of who you are. So Gabrielle, I could see you there. So can you do an introduction or a couple of minutes on who you are and what you do?
Sure. Hello. Thank you for the invitation. So my name is Gabrielle Tatzberger. I'm from the Vienna Business Agency, Director of Startup Services there. And the aim of the Vienna Business Agency is really to build an innovative business location of tomorrow. And we have several tools for that. And besides that, I'm also mastermind of Vienna Up, the big festival that took place this year for the first time. And I'm also managing director of the Vienna Region Ltd. And in addition, I'm also member of the corporate board of the high-tech incubator of Init. So it means that I'm really dealing from very classical company founders till startups, and we are also very much connected internationally with other startup cities in order really to move on here also in Europe in order to really use the synergies also between cities in Europe.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Gabrielle. Joanna, if I could pass to you. I know you come from a background that's very close to my heart as well. So yeah, if you could tell us a bit more about who you are and what you do.
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much for the invitation and the kind introduction. So my name is Johanna Pirker, and I'm a professor for game design at Graz University of Technology. So my background is everything which touches games, but not only games, but also innovative technologies around games. So I'm pretty invested in virtual reality. So actually the most known project which is coming from our group is this Maroon, this virtual reality laboratory, which was even featured in the Forbes magazine for innovative ways to learn in a more immersive way, maybe hopefully the way how we can learn in the future. And again, I'm coming also a little bit from the games industry. So I used to work at Electronic Arts. I'm still strongly connected to the games industry. Work with many game companies, both on research side, but also on a consulting base. And I'm also running the biggest Austrian game developers conference. So a conference bringing developers from, I mean, not only Austria, but actually Central Europe, but also more international every year to Austria. And yeah, that's a little bit from my side.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Joanna. Max, if I could ask you to say a few words about yourself and what you do.
Yeah, hi. Thanks so much for having me. My name is Max Grivitz. I'm in my day life, my daily job, I'm a venture capitalist. I run a fund, an early stage ecosystem building fund in Bulgaria, out of Sofia. I've been in this business of setting up and running early stage funds for the last decade. Did some angel investments, ran an angel network. Before that, I was an entrepreneur myself with a company in the Netherlands where I'm from originally that did online legal services. And I'm very happy to be here with you today, and hopefully I'll learn something and we'll be able to share some of my insights.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Max. And we do have one other panelist, but I can't seem to see them.
Ivo, unfortunately, currently is not in the call. So I would say let's move on and maybe he will join us in a little bit.
Okay, no worries. We'll save the beekeeping to later. But thank you so much to you three for the introductions. And this panel that we're about to talk about is really about how we use innovation to deliver on the SDGs. And it's such a well-rounded panel. I think we're going to have some great perspectives here. So just to kick off, and I want to make sure that we make the panel very interactive between the three of us. So I do have some questions, but please feel free to chip in, and I'll be keeping a check on the Q&A box as well. So if anybody has any questions, please post them and we'll make sure that we get them to the panelists. But just to kick off, and this is to everyone, and so feel free to start first. The first question I wanted to ask is really around, because you're all involved in and supporting innovation in a number of different ways. And I want to kind of start off broadly by asking, what does innovation mean to you, and how do you think we can make more impact through innovation? Big question, but if anybody wants to kind of go first, please feel free.
So maybe I start. Just for me, innovation really is to identify challenges and problems we have, and then to look for solutions that solve this, but taking into account also social and ecological aspects. Because thinking back, especially when you think of digitalization, since the internet came into existence, many great things developed, but there are some developments where I think it's not so good for our society and for us people. And I really think that we have to reflect on that. We have to recognize these challenges we have, because there are sometimes challenges maybe in the day-to-day life we do not recognize so much, but if you reflect on it, so bubbles in the social media, monopolism, etc. So there are many topics also in the digitalization field. And I think that there, without innovation, we just cannot solve these challenges. And I think all ambitions to build a world that we want to live in, this is the key. It's really also being entrepreneur means in the end, build a world where you want to live in, and innovation is here to help us to achieve that. So that's my point of view of innovation.
Definitely. And just to add to that as well, I think that's a really important point about kind of innovation, because it's almost kind of like diving into something that we would, everything's moving so quickly, we're diving into things that we don't quite understand. But I've got a question on that in a bit, but I think that's a really good point. How do we kind of weigh up the positive side, but remember, some of the negative, and just be more mindful of the consequences of innovation. But I think that's a brilliant response. Thank you.
Maybe I may just jump into that, because I thought it was really inspiring what Gabriela mentioned, that it should also add a general value to our society. And I think this is where I can see actually a shift, which I really appreciate these days, because back then innovation was all about bringing novel ideas and novel technologies to add a value to their own organization. But I think there's a general shift now. How can we actually apply ideas, technologies, novel techniques, and make something good for our society, or what are actually the big problems these days. And I honestly, I always believe that good innovation, especially to solve such problems, is also coming through a very interdisciplinary approach. And I see this also striving these days, because again, our problems are pretty big and pretty diverse. And I think we can absolutely use innovative techniques and technologies to solve many of them, but only if we work together through our joint knowledge, backgrounds, and so on and so forth.
Great, thank you, Joanna. Max, what is it from your perspective?
Sure, on innovation. Look, my opinion is that innovation as such, without the sustainable part before it, is actually a bad thing, or it's a dangerous thing. If you look at the history, and this is a theory that's not very original. It's not mine, definitely. Many historians write about it. Kissinger, most famously, perhaps. Innovation as such has been, or technological innovation especially, has been the source of some of the biggest cataclysms we have had as humanity. Right? There are famous theories how both world wars started because of sudden accelerated technological advancement, or how they became as tragic as they were because of those things. So if we can't have an understanding, a humanitarian approach, a sustainable approach to the technologies we build, then whatever we build becomes a Facebook or some other dystopian dystopian solution, right? So this is something, and this is in my day job, I think something that we're trying to be very, very mindful of as the startup community, as the investment community, is that it's good to innovate. We have to, right? We can't stay behind. But with every technology that we adapt, with every new methodology of a new way of solving problems that we adopt, we need to be very careful and very gradual in the way we adopt it, because if it goes too fast, or if the change is too radical, we get into places we don't want to be in. As Johanna mentioned very well, then our problems are indeed very big, and very often they are so big because of because we let innovation run loose. So I always look at it this way. It's a good thing, but with many buts and ifs.
Yeah.
But you always can use a knife to eat your meal, but you can also hurt someone. It always,
exactly.
You have a tool and you can use it in this or that way. Yeah, but I totally agree with you.
So I want to, I think that's brilliant. I think I want to talk about some examples of where it is working, but I think there's been a common thread of we have to be very careful when it comes to innovating. And like what Johanna said, the problems that we're trying to solve are so big that we need big ideas and big solutions. But Max, as you pointed out as well, we need to do it gradually. So I think, innovating for me is, we were kind of throwing ourselves into the unknown. But how do we prevent or minimize the damage that could be done through diving into the unknown? And I wanted to kind of show or share an example of something that I've been involved in, because and Johanna, you'll be very familiar with this as well, but on the gaming side, games often get a bad reputation. They are big, they're powerful, it's a massive industry, it's bigger than film and music combined, and the engagement we get from gaming is incredible. And we can, when you're developing a game, there is a choice. You do it for good, you do it, or you can use it for not so good. But we're very focused on using games as a power of being a force for good. Now, a kind of unintended consequence of that is, as we play more, we're using more energy. We've got to think about the data consumption that we use as well, and the impact on our planet. And so to try and mitigate this, we set up an organization called Playing for the Planet, which is getting the biggest game studios and publishers together to commit to becoming carbon neutral, if not carbon negative, and taking action for the planet. So this was a real drive to make sure that we didn't we're not asking people to play more and use more energy and, you know, have that unintended consequence. So I think it's a real area of discussion, and I'd love to be able to kind of talk about a bit more about that. We've touched on it, but, you know, how do we ensure that when we are innovating and solving such big problems, that we're doing it in a way that isn't going to cause more damage? It's a big question, but, you know, I'd love to discuss it.
May I start? Yeah, I mean, you're talking from my heart. Like, games is something. So as a first example, I can always see like people are always talking or focusing mainly on the bad side of games, like violence and addiction. That's all I'm hearing all day long. But if we look at the movie industry or film industry, it's also not porn and action movies, right? And I think like in the movie industry, and same with the book industry, because this also came like started with a bad reputation very early. It was about like educating people, showing a little bit the diversity of the field and introducing them how they can also add benefits, by, for instance, by developing their own games, sharing own ideas for stories and so on and so forth. And actually it's all about education and all involvement on one hand. And the second point I want to focus on is, again, this interdisciplinary approach. Because what we can see, example, Facebook. There is a really lovely example, speaking of the mighty data science in Facebook. And basically what happened, yeah, there at the end of the year, you get the summary. Hey, Jude, you had such a good year. Let's celebrate this. This is your most liked picture. And you can see like this nice, I don't know, hearts around it, people celebrating. And it was like very simple algorithm doing that. Bunch of computer scientists saying, hey, the picture with the most reactions will be the best picture of the year. But then there was this case of, I think his name was Eric, and he got the picture of his daughter, which died that very year with, I don't know, 6 years old. Of course, it was the picture with the baddest, with the most reactions, people writing their condolences. And this is where actually it's so important to not only let computer scientists work on a problem, but also add people from sociology who tell you not everyone might have had a good year. We cannot just assume that everyone had a good year, and like putting out such a simple algorithm is just wrong. And just giving different thoughts and questions. And I think that's why it's super important. Whatever we're working on, what technology or technique, have different voices and lenses put onto that.
Yeah, and challenging it.
Yeah.
Max, from your line of work, I mean, you're an entrepreneur, you're an investor. You know, you must see hundreds of companies, you know, a day, kind of, you know, land on your desk. But you know, what's your perception of this, or do you challenge what the outcome could be of an innovation, and how do you go about it as an approach?
Mm-hmm. Well, you know, it's a very big topic, right? And it's a wonderful big thing to talk about. I think there are many there are many ways to be mindful of this, or to work on this. One of the things is that, you know, one of the things that's really important, I think, is to have very balanced teams, right? So most of the time we see that whether it's a technology startup or something less technological, it's very important and very good to have diversity in the full sense of the word within a founder team, right? Obviously, you know, diversity in skills, right? When it's only engineers, usually, you know, it doesn't matter how many books they read about the lean startup or the mom test or the customer development or discovery, whatever it is. When you have a team with engineers, with you know, people with humanitarian backgrounds, people that are good in some arts, for instance, people with maybe more admin kind of backgrounds, those things help a lot. And I see this all the time. Usually, you know, thank God, as an industry, we're moving away from this idea that successful startup founders are, you know, young men in their 20s with sneakers and t-shirts. Like it's moving away from that, thank God. But diversity, obviously, in the bigger sense as well. Diversity, gender diversity, ethnic diversity, age diversity is really important as well. Again, that idea, I mean, there's so much research that says that a company, you know, the startups have a much higher chance of being successful in the longer run when they're founded by older people. I mean, I don't know if it goes on into like really old age, but for sure people in their 40s and 50s are often better founders than people in their 20s for obvious reasons, because, you know, there's more life experience behind the back. So those things are important, and definitely, like in my practice, both as an investor, as an active investor, but also as a mentor to to hundreds of startups over the last years. I do see that, right? So that's one thing. Maybe another topic is that innovation as such is something that both within a company, but also in a society, or even in a given society, like a country or a city, really happens over stages, right? This whole idea that you go from like somebody who has nothing or is very young and inexperienced and has a brilliant idea, executes really well, and creates this company that creates a lot of jobs and creates billions of dollars or euros of shareholder value. It's a simplistic idea. It's an idea that's very simplified for the general public. Unfortunately, people are enthralled nowadays. The biggest heroes of our times are people like Elon Musk, despite the fact that we know a lot of like negative stuff about the man. It's still something that apparently kids or young people aspire to become. I think it's very important to give examples of gradual, sustainable, step-by-step innovation. And this happens both in societies. For instance, when we build new entrepreneurship communities, obviously here in Bulgaria, I've been very active in this myself. I've been helping as much as I can other countries in Eastern Europe and in places further away to build entrepreneurship communities. One of the ideas that I always try to instill on people is that it's not about having all these people succeed in what they do. It's about retaining that talent for their next attempt, right? So you help startups do things, you help founders become better at what they do. Most of them still don't become as good as the original idea is, or as good as they're supposed to be. But then the most important thing is to make sure that they're not too dissatisfied or too heartbroken by the eventual failure, but continue to learn, continue to join other teams, and continue to do things. And this kind of, gradually we all learn and grow together. And I think that's another aspect to it. It's a very big thought, and I can talk about more, different ways of looking at this. But I think that sustainability in many ways, or making sure that innovation is actually useful, or Pareto efficient, at least, or Pareto useful, is all about taking it step by step, one day at a time.
I think that's a really good point, though, because I think that kind of talks to today of the kind of instant gratification and trying to get the end results so quickly that we're just forgetting that there's an actual journey to go on, especially when you're creating businesses or ideas that are solving big problems. They take time. And I think there's a real education on that, there's that the average overnight success is 10 years. And, we need to raise more awareness of this, because when you start a company, you're going on a journey, and, you're not going to become, well, it may happen, but it's probably a 1 in a billion chance you become the next Mark Zuckerberg in 2 or 3 years' time. So I think we've got to realign expectations of both, people who are founders want to be founders and investors as well, that it's a long-term journey, and enjoy it. Enjoy the journey and learn something from it, because like you said, you might fail, but then you might go on to take that learning to do something incredible. So I completely agree with your points. Gabrielle,
maybe I would like to add that I think we also have to think in different levels. For example, there is this startup, it's called Refurbed, and they're really reducing electronical waste because, all our electronical devices, they have a quite short lifetime, unfortunately, but they, buy used electronic devices, repair it, and then sell it again, and you have a 1-year warranty combined with it. So, and they are very successful, and I think it's really great what they are doing, very important. At the same time, I think we have to think about, okay, why is there so much electronical waste? Which leads me again to this discussion that we have to deal with the challenges we are facing on different levels. And if we want to have the best innovation, we have to think in different levels. And here, for example, we in Vienna, we call it a manifesto for digital humanism, which is exactly dealing with the question, okay, what does technology doing with us and our societies, and have this discussion not only between technicians, so the diversity topic is here again, and it's really what we need also to do is this bubble bursting, because, also this impact scene is talking with each other, the tech scene is talking with each other, the life science scene is talking with each other, but they are not connected to each other. And what I really love that we at the City of Vienna, we made a call now, a research call in this field of digital humanism. And in order to really have these multidisciplinary teams dealing exactly with these questions. Okay, which technology challenges do we have, and what in the different levels do we have to do in order to come to better solutions in the world? So that's my input now. That and I think that really startups are very important innovation drivers in that field because they are revolutionary. Many corporates may have similar ideas but cannot implement that, and they are challenged by these very fast and flexible and agile units. But this alone is not enough, I would say. So I think we need these different levels. I'm speaking much more maybe from a business location point of view. And that's why I want to bring this also in, that I think also these startups, if they can afford and have time, they also should be part of this discourse with researchers, with humanists, in order to really find new solutions that help us to overcome these challenges.
Yeah, completely agree. And I think that's where you start to see some of the magic happen, is when you see different sectors come together. You know, I've seen it with working with, you know, gaming, academic, NGOs, climate scientists. You know, you kind of bring it all together and you can really create something really special and learn from each other as well. So completely agree with you. We've just had Ivo join the stage. Hi.
Hi, Jude. Hi, Gabrielle. Hi, everyone. Hi, Helena. How are you? How's everyone?
Good,
Can you
thank you.
hear
How are
me?
you doing?
I'm good. I just woke up. I'm in Miami, so it's a bit early for me. I just realized
No,
how early it is.
I thought you might be out beekeeping. I'm desperate to ask you about beekeeping, but we
Yeah. But back home in Bosnia and Croatia, I have bees. Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just doing a quick time check. We've got probably about 10 minutes left, and I wanted to kind of get any questions from the audience. So there's a couple of questions coming through, so I'm just going to start. I'll start from the bottom, because it's actually an area that I really wanted to kind of get into was on the SDGs and looking at you know, if there are any particular trends that you're seeing in terms of which SDGs you're seeing more innovation around, or which ones you think there should be but there isn't, or, you know, are kind of underrepresented. And this kind of, so I'd like to kind of cover that, as well as the question that's come through is, you know, in which SDG field do you think innovation will be the biggest game changer? So I guess if we could think about the SDGs and think about, you know, where are we seeing the most innovation, where are there gaps, and which is the biggest game changer?
At the moment now, currently in industry, I think definitely the ways how decentralized finance have been moving recently, I think that we'll have a huge disruption there in coming years. As well, I mean, it depends on the industry. I think every industry will get some portion of AI optimization as well. And this will definitely change how these companies operate. There'll be a change management to it, and definitely, yeah. I mean, if you have a specific industry that you would like to know how you would change it, or you're just asking like very industry, not specific to the industry, because I believe definitely decentralized finance is the next one, the big one that's getting disrupted.
On the crypto side.
So crypto is one thing and DeFi is another thing, decentralized finance, as I see at this moment. Crypto is more like, you know, people who know crypto don't know decentralized finance. I think it's kind of, you have to know finance and crypto to know decentralized finance. It requires more learning curve.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's definitely crypto. It's using cryptography as an underlying optimization and zero trust protocol between two parties. But just like the game is different, you know, as Caesar would say, bread and games for everyone. So, you know, we all have ways to click around and play and make magic internet money.
No, and I think you brought up a really good point about, are we talking about sector or are we talking about general? I think, we're being very kind of sector agnostic here and just kind of thinking about the SDGs in terms of the impact and innovation. So Gabrielle, Max, Johanna, have you got any thoughts around where you're seeing kind of the trends in the SDGs?
Yeah, from my point of view, it's really this CO2 emissions reduction is one where also from the political level, there comes a huge pressure, and it's connected also even for companies that are not or do not deal with SDGs so far. This is a topic that will come because it will cost money. So it's just from an economical point of view, it's a necessity that you're dealing with it. And I think it's also, especially cities, I think play a key role in that, because we know that most of the CO2 emissions you can really save. Cities play a very important role. And I know that many cities are really piloting in that field, looking for new innovations, trying to find new solutions. And it does not only mean CO2 emissions, but really being a smart city and everything that is connected with that and all the solutions connected with that, I think are very, very important. And also there is a market there for these kind of solutions. So I think there will many initiatives will go on in the next years in that field. For example, we plan to do, as we are at the Vienna Business Agency, we are also giving grants to companies from abroad that would like to come to Vienna or are here located. And we plan, for example, for next year, a zero emission city call. So we are looking for solutions that help us as Vienna to become a zero emission city. And I'm really keen and looking forward to which solutions are out there that may help us to achieve that faster and better.
Brilliant. That's great to know.
Yeah, definitely. We need to. Sorry, go ahead.
No, sorry. I was just asking if Johanna wanted to say something. If not, I'll add something from my point of view. If you look at the SDGs, I think there are different incentives to for certain goals to be easier to fulfill especially through startup and entrepreneurship activity than others. Here in Europe, at the European Union, I think we have an incredible opportunity with this European Green Deal, which is going to be, as it seems, the focus of pretty much all EU spending, and especially the spending on innovation and on venture instruments, venture opportunities. So then you look at stuff like clean energy, you look at stuff like climate change, right? I think that, for as far as I understand it now, the European Union basically wants to wants everything that it funds to be, pushing the needle in terms of more sustainable and more green, which is amazing. I think that those SDGs that are kind of in that area, which I think are 3 or 4, would definitely be, we have a great opportunity as Europe to actually, become leaders, and as far as we aren't already, even more in this field in the next decade. So those ones are the ones that we, I think, as the investors are very, very excited about.
Definitely. Johanna, what about your thoughts on the goals?
I wonder, I think regarding the SDGs, I think many or most of them actually can benefit of applying innovation to reach them. But I think for many, we also need to take a step back and actually look what is already out there and how can we actually stabilize the existing system to achieve those goals, and why not. I mean, that's also innovation if you apply existing methods just into a different field. And I, for instance, I find it super exciting. We work on many of the SDGs together with partners in the field of gaming, for instance, and try to find out how we can actually provide interesting new solutions for clean water systems through gamified or playful solutions. And I think there are so many opportunities there, and I'm just excited to provide, for instance, my expertise and see how could I contribute. And yeah, exciting times.
I think that's spot on, and I could speak to you all day about gaming as well, because there's so much innovation that comes from the games industry that's applied to other areas. And Gabrielle, like you were saying, we need this kind of cross-sector approach. But I do think that's so right as well, that there is so much innovation in different sectors. How can we look beyond the area that we're in to see what's out there already, and rather than reinvent the wheel, build on existing tech or ideas that have been tried and tested. just very quick, we've got a couple of minutes left, but there's another question that came in, which I think is probably a good one to kind of end on. But what's the biggest impact innovation in the last year? Or what's the biggest impact innovation that you've seen? Who wants to go first? But there are too many to mention.
I think this is a question really hard to answer because there's so many really good initiatives and companies out there. So for me, it's really hard to mention one. But one example I like very much is a startup here from Vienna. It's called Revo Food, and they do 3D printing. So they print seafood with the flavor of the ocean, but it's made of vegetables. So it really tastes, you eat fish, but you don't eat fish, you eat vegetables. And they try to really solve the problem of overfishing and all the negative effects for the oceans. And so this is a revolutionary approach. But I really think if they manage to build it in with a good infrastructure in a sustainable way, it's really one way to maybe tackle one very important problem we have on this earth. And I think there are thousands of them out there, and we also need to give them a floor to, you know, that more people, because we are always talking about impact companies, but you need to show the people which kind of companies and what they are doing. And I always say I'm very privileged because I know all these founders and startups who are doing that kind of stuff, but my neighborhood doesn't know because they went through the street and see the shops and nothing else. So I think the more we can also show these kind of companies in media and raise the awareness that they're really engaged people out there solving problems, this would be also very important for all our society.
Definitely. Educating consumers on what their options are. Yeah. Does anybody else want to go next? But what's the best innovation that you've seen? It doesn't have to be the past year, it could be ever.
No, you know, maybe it's a totally an open door that I'm going to kick in now, but honestly, COVID really helped us adapt certain certain much needed innovations faster. I mean, this whole thing with remote, I mean, what we're doing now, this conference would have been in person, and very likely many of us wouldn't be there because of, you know, many other things we have to do. And now we're here, we're talking, and we're getting to know each other, and we're exchanging really cool ideas. I mean, it sounds corny, but it's something that I think about all the time, that despite the fact that it was fun to travel more, perhaps for some people, I'm actually quite happy traveling less, but for some people, I get it that people do miss the travel, miss the social interactions in as much as they were before. It's definitely less now, and probably won't be that much again anytime soon. But at the same time, you know, this adaptivity to remote work, to remote connection is good. You know, it's good for our mental health, probably for some people at least. It's definitely good for the environment. I mean, if you look at the pollution indexes, you know, they're all down massively because, you know, we travel less, we drive less, we fly less. So those, I think that the changes that brought, the positive changes of the pandemic are not to be underestimated. And also from a startup entrepreneurship point of view, you can definitely see how there's heightened interest in solutions that, you know, make this remote lifestyle easier to have, easier to do. So for me, that's a really positive development of the last year and a half.
That's a great response.
Maybe just my coins. I think this is a very dangerous question to ask, because I think this is one of the problems we're having right now, because we are jumping from innovation to innovation. We're just looking, okay, what is the next hype? What is like the most exciting thing in the Gartner hype cycle? And let's forget everything which has been passed. So let's make everything with blockchains, AI, give me all the buzzwords. And I don't think this is the way to go. I think we really need to focus on specific technologies and make them really bring them into production, try to use them in a proper way. And I think what Max just said, I mean, COVID was a really good push actually to use the things we already have, which were innovation back then, but nobody took a lot of time to actually push them further. So I think it brought us really back and down to earth, to rethink what we have and try to make those things a little bit stronger. So I wouldn't always go for, hey, what was like last year the biggest hype? What can I invest all my money in? But rather try to focus, hey, what is becoming stable and how can we actually implement that?
Yeah, double down on what's working and, you know, move away from hypes.
May I add, maybe because I think this is a very important issue, and I know that, for example, there is IEEE did the first certification of an AI algorithm from an ethical point of view. I think we also need to go into the direction, okay, there's so many things out there, but also we have to define standards in order to guarantee a certain kind of transparency, ethical quality, and Joanna, in that way, I'm totally with you. I think there is already so much here, but we do not have a quality check for clients and consumers in order to decide, okay, I decide for this product because I know it's transparent, it's ethical, right? It's approved, you know. At the moment, you just take it and you often don't know really what's behind.
Yeah, I think it's a really good point. Sorry, I'm just very aware that we need to kind of wrap up in the next minute or so, but Ivo, if I could just pass you just to kind of finish up that question and get your opinion.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely when you're building an AI system, you need to think about sustainability of that system and how it affects environment. And you are always trying to, you know, to direct it to do good things, to plant the trees, to, you know, do something good. And, you know, that's a very important consideration when you're building systems like this. I can just like amplify whatever Gabrielle, Max, and Joanna told before, and I agree with that. I mean, it's like definitely we have to be careful. We have to know what we're doing, and we have to think about sustainable future for our kids, for future generations.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. Well, this amazing panel. I could talk about this all day. It's just brilliant. And I know we just kind of scratched the surface, but I think it's just, you know, the theme of sustainability around innovation is just so strong, you know, and we have to be very mindful about what we are creating and look at what's there already, again, in kind of you know, in a sustainable way. You know, let's use what exists and create standards around using it better and for good. So thank you so much to Joanna, Max, Gabrielle, Ivo. You've been absolutely brilliant. And Ivo, I'm so glad you were able to make it for this last part. So I'm going to pass over to Sophie now and just thank you so much to the panel. You've been brilliant. Thank you.